Good evening. I just want to share a couple of tips for paper crafter this evening, and specifically I'm sharing two helpful websites. So if you do paper projects that you replicate, or if you do journaling projects, I think this video might be useful to you. So the first site I want to show you, I don't do a lot of duplication. I basically make a project or card or a book, and I make it once, it's given to someone, or I keep it, and then I'm done. Or I might make it again later on in the year, but I don't really replicate except when I do workshops. And because of that, I don't have a lot of experience in cutting smartly. So I found this website, and it's a really nice website. It helps me calculate the best way to cut the paper so that I waste the least amount. So of course you can take when you've cut out a project, you can take your waste and you can put it in your waste saving bin and use it for something else. But when you have a workshop, or when you have a lot of people, like 10, 20, even 100 people to cut for, you want to maximize the paper for the job at hand. So I've zoomed into the area that you input first. So what you have to do, this is the minimum you have to do, is you put in the size of your paper. So I'm going to put in 12 by 12. Now you can use centimeters as well, but I'm going to use inches. And what's really great, and I don't know, those of you that work with paper a lot know that it matters which way the grain is going, because you don't want to fold against the paper grain. So you can also tell it how your grain is running, but that's optional. You need to put in the width and the length. So then you tell it, okay, I need to cut this paper so that I end up with as many 4 by 4 pieces as possible. So you just put in the 4 by 4, and so now this is the minimum that you can put in for this. So it's made a diagram for me showing the best way to get the most 4 by 4 pieces from my 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. Now, what I also love, if you notice down here on the bottom of that diagram, it's telling me what percentage of the paper I am wasting, right? And notice in this case, 12 by 12, 4 by 4 pieces will be 0 waste. If I cut it this way, there'll be no waste. Now, if I change my parameter, I'm just going to do that real quick, to 8.5 by 11, notice that in this case, there is waste. So over there on the right and on the bottom, I'm going to have some waste. And so if you look at the calculation, that in this case, I'll be wasting 31.55% of the paper. So obviously, if I was trying to cut 4 by 4 pieces, I would want to cut them from a 12 by 12 if I have that available. Now, just to show you, if you look over here on the left, you can put in other variables. For instance, if you wanted a left margin on the paper that you're cutting, maybe you're cutting for a book and you need a gutter for your binding, you can put that information in. You can put in how much blank you want between cuts. You can put in all these different variables that you can also add. I don't actually need any of the other variables at all. I'm happy with what I showed you at the top, but there's even more. So if you sign in to this site, you can get more paper cutting options. And personally, I am tired of putting my username and password because I'm just going to forget it, and I don't want to use the same password, so I'm tired of signing into things. But you could go that route. I don't. I'm happy with the unsigned in version that just helps me cut my paper based. Okay, so the second site is Incompetech. I can't pronounce it, but I will put up the URL to this. And what it does is it helps me print out lined paper. So a lot of times when I'm doing journals, I like to print on quality cardstock. Either it's, it might even be textured cardstock or canvas or acetate that I want to print on for my journals, because I like to make smash books and journals. So this site, I can actually choose lined paper to print. And so what it has is it has a place where you can put in, you know, what size you want your lined paper to be. You can choose, so here it's four lines per inch. Okay, if you scroll up, you pick your size. So normally I'm printing on 8.5 by 11. But you can also print on 11 by 17. Sometimes I do that. And those of you that have printers that can do others can actually choose. You can choose what your border is around the lines. You can choose the weight of your lines and the color of your lines. So I'm just going to keep the defaults and choose black. And then I'm going to click download PDF. And what that's going to do, it's going to open a PDF file for me with the lines that I've asked for in the format that I've asked for. And now I can just print this page as many times as I need on my cardstock, and I've got instant lines. Now I'm going to go back slash graph paper. So Incompetech, but then slash graph paper, and then look down on that page and you'll see you have all these different kinds of paper. So there's a square grid, there's like that honeycomb. You can even print lines that are radial. You can print brick assemblies. You can print, the one I was in was called writing and note taking. Okay, but you have all these different kinds of papers that you have options to print. Once you find the one that you want, you click on that, and then there's some options under writing and note taking. So there's the regular notebook paper, then there's lined paper, and then there's Cornell lined paper, which has that gutter for taking notes on the side of your journaling. And so you can see how many options. It's huge how many options you have. Just kind of scroll back up so you can see that. Now the one that I use is usually either just the plain old lined or the notebook. And the difference is the line is just lines, nothing else. And the notebook has that little gutter. So I'm going to open up lined, for instance. That's where I was originally. And then you see I'm back there. What's nice is you can even choose the color of your lines. And I like to choose a very light color, like a light gray or a light blue, because really the purpose of the line is to keep my handwriting neat. It's not really for aesthetics. So sometimes I'll print a very light color line and it just barely shows up on the cardstock, and I love that. So there's a light gray that I use all the time, and the lines are therefore barely perceivable when I print them on quality cardstock. So I hope you guys could use those tips. I should be posting a card this weekend. I look forward to stamping with you again. Until then, happy stamping. Talk to you soon.